Have you ever walked into a Sephora or an Ulta and felt like, I want to get a handle on my skincare routine and I want to find the best products possible for my skin, and then started to go through these aisles and just feel like there are so many products out there, so many claims, and it's just so hard to navigate what I'm supposed to use, when I'm supposed to use it. Then you might have a sales clerk come along and just tell you to buy stuff, and you end up with hundreds of dollars worth of products, and you're not even quite sure if it's going to do what you want it to do. My name is Dr. Aram Elias. I'm a board certified dermatologist. I've been in practice for over 20 years and seen thousands of patients every year, and I can really give you a better sense of what my patients are experiencing and how I tend to navigate these aisles for my patients so that they get a better sense of what to purchase and whether or not these products would even work for them. So subscribe now, follow along, and let's learn about your skin from each and every aspect of your face, hair, ears, neck. This way you can really navigate your choices moving forward. So let's start with your forehead. The forehead is the best place to start for a lot of people simply because it's the part of our face that's somewhat convex, meaning it slopes outward, and it reflects light, and it actually gives us the ability to see if light uniformly reflects off of our skin. When you see all of these trends, like the dolphin skin trend or other types of skincare trends where your skin is meant to look shiny or dewy, or even somewhat matte-like as well, what most of these trends are focused in on is an aspect of your skin that you may not give much thought to, and that's the way that light reflects off of your skin. If you wear bangs, you may not think about your forehead very often. That's true. So this is definitely hairstyle dependent. I think the best way to tackle how to approach skincare is to break down each part of your facial anatomy by what you might see change as you get older and what you might be experiencing. And then we figure out which ingredients would actually address those aspects of your skin you're seeing so that you can kind of plug and play, as opposed to just banking your hopes on lofty claims of improving the appearance of your skin, which is really just a subjective claim that has no meaning at all for most of my patients. So let's start with foreheads. Foreheads are the part of your face that actually is convex, meaning it slopes outwards. If you wear bangs, it's true, you may not give much thought to your forehead, but it is an important part of our facial anatomy that can actually give you a general sense of how light reflects off of your skin. When your skin is uniformly pigmented, even skin tone, with no inflammation, irritation, and there's no excess pigmentation there or lighter pigmentation there, you will find that light reflects uniformly off of your skin and gives you a somewhat youthful appearance simply because it gives a healthy glow. There's this glow that the skin can have when there's nothing disrupting the way that light reflects off of your skin. If there's pigmentation there, whether it be lighter or darker pigmentation, inflammation in the form of acne or rosacea or other types of skincare challenges, or if there's lots of flaking, dryness in the superficial layers of skin, as well as if you have any fine lines, wrinkles, or increased pore size on the forehead, you're going to notice it. You may not kind of pinpoint what it is you're seeing about your skin, but what you're going to experience in terms of the visual experience is that light will not reflect uniformly off of your skin. My patients will say their skin just looks dull. They feel like they just don't have that sort of glow to their skin that they're seeking, and they want to have something that imparts that glow. Now, how do you get that glow? So if we start with foreheads, if you have any kind of pigmentation disruption in your skin, we need to address that by both preventing it as well as actively treating or managing it. Early in life, so if we approach this by decades, before the age of 20, if you have been so good about photo protection, and I mean photo protection, not just sunlight protection, I want you to be protecting your skin against visible light, UVA light, and UVB light, and the damage that it can impart on your skin. By doing so, you can reduce the chances of pigmentation kicking in later in life. It's almost as though the seeds of pigmentation are planted early on based on your light exposure. You may not see pigmentation develop right away. However, 10, 20, 30 years later, any areas that you had a sunburn, chronic UV exposure, chronic visible light exposure in the form of blue light, say from computer screens or from the sunlight as well too, or high energy efficient light bulbs, you will notice as you get older, pigmentation will develop in those areas in particular. You can always tell the difference between those areas and areas not exposed to chronic photo exposure just by comparing that part of your anatomy to areas in your anatomy that are not chronically exposed to light. Say, for example, areas covered by your underwear, because you know those areas are always somewhat blocked from UV light as well as photo exposure as well too. So if we talk first things first, you want to think about photo protection. You want an SPF containing product that has an avobenzone concentration of at least 3%, which is actually the maximum you can have, or a zinc concentration, a zinc oxide concentration of at least 5%. The reason why is because if you have one of those two ingredients in there, you will have adequate UVA coverage just by having that concentration of those ingredients. Having them present is not enough, and I know that almost every product out there says it's broad spectrum, but the question is how much is that UVA coverage in that product being offered? If there's just a dash of avobenzone or a zinc oxide in there, you may not be getting adequate UVA coverage. So look for concentrations to make sure that you are getting adequate UVA blockage. The second would be looking for iron oxides in your skincare products. So iron oxides, whether it be in your sunscreen or in other products that you might be using, impart a tint to those products. Now the tint is not for cosmetic purposes. We're not talking makeup or foundation. We're talking about a tint to make the product somewhat opaque, so that when you apply it to your skin, it can physically block the effects of visible light, blue light, high energy efficient light from actually affecting your skin, whether it be through changes in pigmentation or changes in the quality of your skin as you get older. Doing that at an early age, before the age of 20, focusing on your face, your neck, your ears, the back of your neck, can only serve to benefit you as you get older. So now you're in your 20s, and maybe you've been pretty good about photo protection, maybe not, but now you're starting to think, what can I do to get on top of this now? So if you've been really good about photo protection, you've been wearing tinted products, you've been wearing SPF containing products, you've been very careful about your UVA and UVB blockage, you may just need to continue that, meaning you may not need to add in other ingredients. However, most people have had some exposure, and most people did not know the impact of visible light on their skin, as this information has really become more prevalent in the past decade, simply because of the increased usage of high energy efficient lights, both inside the home as well as through electronic devices. So now that you know that there is an impact there, we want you to get a head start on covering yourself from this point forward, but also trying to take another step to reverse some of the damage from before, or at least try to slow it down so it doesn't cause as much problems for your skin as you get older. This is a great time to start using retinol. Retinol is the long game. So if you are in your 20s and you're starting to think about what can I do to try to protect my skin further, reduce damage over time that I might experience, retinol is a great ingredient to start using at this age, simply because it is the long game. It's not necessarily as strong as prescription options out there, but it does do something. When you start using it at an early age, technically remember retinol is an inactive ingredient and it's activated by your skin. And retinol can have some benefits for your skin over time, including decreasing the tendency for collagen to break down as you get older, perhaps stimulating some collagen production, as well as addressing pigmentation, evening out your complexion. Those are bonuses, benefits for your skin that you can start at a very young age so that you can start to prevent that damage from kicking in and try to address it as it starts as well too. Already see the impacts of pigmentation in your skin. So this would be in our 20s and 30s, where we're actually starting to see the effects of the photo exposure we had even in our teens start to kick in later. So even if you were really good about photo protection in your 20s and you were not so great about photo protection in your teens or your childhood years, you will start to still see the effects of pigmentation from those years kick in, usually by our 30s. And that's a great time to start thinking about products that contain vitamin C in the morning. Vitamin C is a great ingredient because, again, it has the ability to block an enzyme in our skin responsible for pigmentation. So that at the very least, if you're good about photo protection and you're trying to prevent further damage from kicking in, but you also want to have something in place that's blocking pigmentation from triggering as you're in the sun or out in light sources, so that you can protect your skin further while you have retinol working for you overnight. Once you hit your 40s and 50s, even in our late 30s, we'll see this as well, you will start to see some fine lines and wrinkles kicking in. Fine lines and wrinkles, especially deeper wrinkles, are a result of a few processes in the skin. The forehead in particular is a very unique part of our anatomy where the muscle, the frontalis muscle, actually attaches directly to the skin. It's responsible for making our foreheads dynamic so that you can express yourself. You know, you can raise your forehead, you can furrow your forehead with other muscles there, the corrugator muscles. Those muscles are responsible for moving the skin, but as we're getting older, our skin is thinning, and that's from that photo exposure as well as we get older, we do see that effect on our skin. As we start to get older and the skin is thinning, you will start to see those fine lines kicking in, and they can become deeper lines as we lose fat or volume underneath the skin that holds on to those wrinkles a little more effectively. If we're losing elasticity in our skin as well, which is very common to see, oftentimes as a result of sunburns when we were younger or chronic sun exposure or light exposure, that also will make our skin less apt to bounce back. So when you are furrowing your forehead or raising it up, there's an elasticity component to our skin that's not collagen that allows our skin to snap back to where it was before. When it really doesn't snap back, then elasticity is the component that you're seeing impacted in your skin, and that's where we need to start thinking about ways to improve that elasticity of your skin, as well as addressing the muscular contractions you might be experiencing. So when the elasticity is impacted, the muscles are contracting, then we start to think about products that are really focused in on addressing those aspects of our skin. The muscular contraction is probably the most common when we try to address, only because elasticity is a very challenging one to gain back into our skin. What we find with the muscular contraction, this is the age, usually our late 30s and 40s and 50s, is when people start thinking about Botox injections. Botox and other neurotoxins such as Dysport and Xeomin are products that are used to paralyze those muscles when we inject them into areas of the skin, usually the forehead and around the eyes, so that as you try to express yourself and you try to furrow your forehead or raise it up, you're not as easily able to do so. By not moving those muscles as easily, then the skin surrounding them will be less likely to hold on to fine lines and wrinkles, and allow your other skincare products to catch up and improve the quality of your skin. Beyond that, that's when we start to think about if you have really deep etched in lines and you're catching this, say, in your 50s and 60s, and some lines are just in there. You know, you feel like even if you relax those lines, if you don't move your forehead, you still have those wrinkles at rest. Sometimes that's when we start to consider placing filler in the skin to lift up those wrinkles so that they're not as noticeable. It's always important to note that if we do use fillers in the forehead to lift some of those wrinkles, it's not an isolated treatment. We often have to maintain Botox injections afterwards just so that they don't come back. So this is a process that we have to stay on top of. Lasers and radiofrequency skin tightening and other types of procedural interventions can try to improve the quality of our skin and improve the texture of our skin, especially the pigmentation that you tend to see in some of the collagen production. But alone, they're not always as effective as also maintaining a good skincare regimen. So focusing on products that you can use that can actually benefit your skin and easy to find is always very helpful. When it comes to retinol over the counter, I had my research team go out to the stores and actually catalog all the retinols they could come across, and you'd be surprised to find out that most products that I found on the market do not actually disclose the percentage of retinol in the product. First things first, when you look at a product, you will always notice that retinol is not listed as an active ingredient. The reason for this is because if it's an active ingredient, those products have to prove both safety and efficacy, whereas they cannot always prove that with retinol-containing products simply because it's an inactive ingredient and does depend on your skin's ability to transform it into something more active. This is where percentages and brand names do matter, and the research that's behind some of those brands. You want to look at products that have actually been tested by those companies so that they can actually demonstrate what they've seen. You'll most often hear the claim, these products will improve the appearance of your skin. They will not say that they actually change your skin in any capacity. This is because these products simply cannot make that claim, and it does give people varying results. This is why you'll have one person that uses retinol and they'll say nothing happened to their skin, and another that says their skin was so dried out and irritated, and another that swears by it. Results are variable. I tend to prefer people start with products that disclose the percentage of retinol in their product, starting off with a milder one just so that the concentration is not as high. Make sure you tolerate it, and it gives you the ability to increase percentages over time. If you go back to my blog, we have a list of those retinol containing products that are found over the counter, the percentages disclosed by those companies, and the ones that have not disclosed those percentages so that you can decide which ones you want to try out. Now, if you haven't been able to stay on top of things and you find yourself with sort of a heavy forehead, this is when the laxity of the forehead skin starts to actually put pressure on your upper eyelids. This means that not only have you lost collagen over time, you've actually lost some elasticity and actually have excess or lax skin over time too. What you'll also notice is as your forehead gets heavier and puts pressure on your upper eyelids, I'll have a lot of patients that'll say that they come in for Botox because they see lots of wrinkles across their forehead, but don't realize that they only have those wrinkles there because they are using their foreheads to keep their eyes open. These patients are not great candidates for Botox because if we were to inject those muscles with Botox, their foreheads will drop further and they just won't be able to keep their eyes open as easily. We really want to be critical in terms of where we can use Botox and where we can't, and this is where experience and expertise does matter. The patients that come in and they say, I just felt like my eyelids were so heavy, it just didn't work, were not appropriately diagnosed ahead of time to find out where the challenge actually was and whether or not Botox was actually going to work for them. The best gauge to go by for this is if you actually have to lift your forehead to raise your eyelids up and you don't feel like just raising your eyelids in isolation works for you, then it is important to talk to your dermatologist about options to address this. This may be a better place for surgical interventions, whether it be through the eyelid skin or the forehead itself. But that being said, this warrants an evaluation by a board-certified dermatologist or plastic surgeon just to make sure your outcome of treatment is ideal. I'll talk about this in later videos, but also remember that your forehead is framed by your hairline and your eyebrows. Our eyebrows and our hairline do matter in the sense that when those are impacted, whether it be thinning of our scalp hair or we're seeing thinning of our eyebrows, you will see a difference in how you perceive yourself. And it is important to know that we have ways to address this as well that we'll touch on in a few